The Essays of Warren Buffett short audio summary. These audio recordings don't try to make you smarter, they slow you down enough to make you less wrong. Over time, most people in business don't fail because they lack intelligence. They fail because they repeat the same mistakes with more confidence. They move faster, decide sooner, explain better, and think worse. Listening to this series gradually changes that. You begin to notice how often decisions are made to appear competent, not to be correct, how urgency replaces judgment, how complexity hides weak thinking, how incentives quietly reshape behavior, including your own. One shift happens early. You stop asking, "What should I do?" You start asking, "What am I actually deciding?" That alone changes everything. As you move through the recordings, several things begin to settle. You learn to recognize predictable thinking traps before you fall into them. You start separating noise from signal. In numbers, meetings, and opinions, you develop patience. Without becoming passive, you learn to think like an owner. Even when you don't legally own anything, you become more comfortable saying no. Without justification, you see why intelligent systems still produce irrational outcomes. You stop confusing effort, activity, and progress. You begin valuing durability over speed. You gain clarity without needing certainty. You reduce emotional leakage in decisions involving money, people, and time. There is also a quieter transformation. Your relationship with pressure changes. Instead of reacting faster, you pause longer. Instead of explaining more, you simplify. Instead of trying to look right, you focus on being aligned with reality. The recordings don't give tactics, they remove distortions. They train you to think in probabilities, not stories, in incentives, not intentions, in long-term consequences, not short-term comfort. By the end, the biggest benefit isn't knowledge. It's judgment. Calmer judgment, cleaner judgment, judgment that holds up when conditions are unclear, opinions are loud, and time is limited. That's the real outcome. Not motivation, not confidence. A quieter mind and better decisions that follow naturally from it. Why intelligent people still make predictable mistakes? It usually doesn't start with a bad decision, it starts with a reasonable one. Smart people rarely wake up and choose something irrational. They choose what feels defensible, what sounds logical in a meeting, what won't require explaining later. And that's where the first crack appears. Intelligence is often used to justify movement, not to question direction. The mind looks for coherence, not truth, so it builds a story that makes the next step feel necessary. That pattern repeats. Over time, decisions stop being evaluated on whether they improve reality. They're judged on whether they fit the narrative already in motion. There's a line that quietly captures this dynamic. What the wise do in the beginning, fools do in the end. The danger isn't ignorance, it's delayed recognition. Most errors don't look like errors when they're made. They look like consistency, like professionalism, like staying the course. The problem is that intelligence accelerates commitment. Once a smart person commits publicly, the brain shifts roles. It stops being an evaluator, it becomes a defense attorney. Evidence is filtered, doubt is reframed as temporary, contradictory signals are labeled short-term noise. And incentives do the rest. When rewards are tied to activity, activity increases. When rewards are tied to growth, growth is pursued regardless of quality. When reputation is on the line, flexibility disappears. This is how intelligent systems produce foolish outcomes. Not through stupidity, through alignment. Alignment with incentives, alignment with expectations, alignment with past decisions. Eventually, the cost shows up, but late. By then, reversing course feels more dangerous than continuing, so the mistake compounds quietly. Listening closely, a shift begins to form. You stop asking whether a decision sounds smart. You start asking whether it remains sound without explanation. You learn to notice when intelligence is being used to protect identity instead of reality, when speed is replacing judgment, when consistency is being confused with discipline. The mistake doesn't disappear, but recognition moves earlier. And earlier recognition is the difference between damage and discomfort. That's the first recalibration. Not smarter thinking, cleaner thinking before momentum takes over. Thinking without urgency, noise, or performance. Most pressure doesn't come from reality, it comes from timing expectations. Deadlines, markets, meetings, the subtle feeling that a pause will be interpreted as weakness. Urgency feels productive, it creates motion, it signals engagement. But it also narrows perception. When speed becomes the default, thinking turns reactive, questions shorten, options collapse, complex trade-offs are reduced to binary choices. There's a quiet warning embedded in a simple observation. You don't have to make it back the way you lost it. Urgency convinces people otherwise. Loss triggers haste, haste invites risk, risk feels justified because time becomes the enemy. Noise enters next. Opinions multiply, data fragments, commentary replaces analysis. In noisy environments, people don't think independently, they triangulate. They adjust their views relative to others instead of to reality. That's how performance thinking replaces judgment. Decisions begin serving optics. They aim to look decisive, informed, aligned. The problem isn't lack of information, it's lack of silence. Real thinking requires space where nothing needs to be said yet, where no one is watching, where the mind can sit with uncertainty without rushing to resolve it. This kind of quiet feels irresponsible in fast-moving systems, so it's avoided. Instead, people mistake responsiveness for intelligence. They answer quickly, they decide publicly, they move forward even when direction is unclear. Listening to these recordings retrains that reflex. You start noticing when urgency is artificial, when deadlines are social, not structural, when silence would actually improve the outcome. You also learn to separate thinking from performing thought. One happens privately, the other happens visibly. Only one improves decisions. Gradually, the need to respond immediately weakens. You become comfortable saying, "I don't know yet." You learn to let ideas mature instead of forcing conclusions. Noise loses its authority. Not because it disappears, but because you stop treating it as signal. And that's when thinking regains its depth. Not faster, not louder. Clearer. Ownership as a mental position, not a legal one. Ownership doesn't begin with equity, it begins with consequence. Most people think ownership is about control, titles, votes, percentages. In reality, it's about who lives with the outcome. There's a simple principle that quietly reshapes behavior. Owners think in decades, managers think in quarters. The distinction isn't moral, it's structural. When decisions don't carry lasting consequences, thinking shortens. When outcomes can be transferred, explained away, or blamed upward, caution disappears. This is why intelligent people still approve weak decisions. They don't feel the future cost. Mental ownership changes that. It forces a different question to surface before action. Would I make this decision if I had to live with it quietly for 10 years? Most decisions don't survive that test. Listening to these recordings slowly builds that internal position, even in roles without formal authority, even when incentives point elsewhere. You begin evaluating choices as if the result were permanent, as if explanations wouldn't matter later, as if reputation had to survive consequences, not narratives. This doesn't make you slower. It makes you selective. You stop optimizing for approval. You stop outsourcing responsibility to systems, committees, or market logic. Another shift follows. Money stops feeling like fuel, it starts feeling like stored judgment. Every allocation becomes a statement about belief, about patience, about trust in reality over optimism. This mindset naturally resists excess. It questions growth that needs constant defense. It favors durability over expansion. You also become less impressed by activity. Busy environments lose their authority. Ownership thinking doesn't chase momentum. It asks whether momentum leads somewhere worth staying. Over time, something subtle happens. You feel less pressure to act, more pressure to be aligned. And alignment, unlike speed, compounds quietly. Simplicity on the far side of experience. Simplicity is often misunderstood. At the beginning, it looks like ignorance. Later, it looks like arrogance. Only at the far end does it reveal itself as discipline. There's a difference between not knowing much and knowing what doesn't matter. Most people add complexity as they gain experience, more rules, more metrics, more explanations. It feels safer. Complexity creates the illusion of control. If something goes wrong, there's always something to point to. But experience doesn't reward accumulation, it rewards subtraction. There's a quiet line that captures this. What counts is not necessarily how many people you know, but how well you know the few you do. The same applies to ideas. Simple thinking isn't quick thinking, it's thinking that has survived friction. It has been tested by mistakes, by pressure, by time. Listening to this series, you begin recognizing when complexity is doing the thinking for you, when models replace judgment, when frameworks become shields. You also notice how often simplicity is avoided because it exposes responsibility. Simple decisions leave no place to hide. That's uncomfortable. So people decorate them, they surround them with process, data, and language. But clarity doesn't need protection. Over time, your thinking starts shedding unnecessary layers, not all at once, quietly. You stop needing to prove understanding, you stop over-explaining, you stop mistaking sophistication for depth. What remains is stable. A few principles you trust, a narrow circle of competence, a respect for what you don't know. That's the simplicity that lasts. Not minimalism, maturity.